Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I'm so excited to be participating in a blog hop to celebrate Pretty Pink Posh's latest release, which is beyond adorable, is about the easiest way to describe it. So I decided to use the new Summer Friends stamp set, and I kept most of the dies in this set connected. I did a video quite some time ago showing how I like to line up stamps with the coordinating die set. And this only works if the dies aren't nested. With this set, there was only 2 small dies that were nested, so I snipped those out, but I kept everything else together. So I have the dies face down on my cardstock here in my mini MISTI, and then I lined up all of the images in the Summer Friends set with the coordinating dies. And then on each little corner there, I stamped the coordinating little drinks that are in that set that I'll use the die separately. So I've got everything lined up, and then now I can stamp onto the cardstock with Hero Art's Intense Black ink. This is a Copic friendly or alcohol marker friendly ink. And I'm using Neenah 80-pound cardstock for this, the Solar White Classic Crest, you know, also Copic friendly. So I inked it up a couple times and stamped all my images, and then I got to town coloring all of these. So I've super sped up my coloring. I've had a lot of people commenting lately, like, I wish I could color as fast as you do. I wish I could color this fast too. I speed this up in the editing process before I publish these videos. Otherwise, we would be sitting here for quite some time. I think it took me a good half an hour to an hour, I think, maybe to color all these in. I'm not sure. I was talking with a friend the entire time. You know, my kids are running around. It was all kinds of stuff. But I just did my basic Copic coloring. I just started with the skin tones like I always do, working from darkest to lightest. Kept keeping it all pretty simple because I was coloring in so many images and I have 5 million things going on as usual. These would look really cute though to mix up and do different skin tones and all that sort of thing. It would just look absolutely adorable. But again, I wanted to keep things simple. So I did all the skin tones the same, and then I did 2 of the characters with the same color hair, 2 of the characters with brown hair, etc. Just keeping with the continuity, plus because I was using, as it was, just a ton of Copics, and I was running out of space on my desk. So I went with my usual MO and used the darkest color first, and then I would work my way to the lighter color with all of this. So with these, with the little boys and with the little girl who has more hair kind of exposed here, I would just flick the color and I would move the image around to whatever's kind of comfortable to you, because sometimes it works to have the image facing away from you. Sometimes it works better facing towards you. It just depends on what you're coloring and how, especially if you're doing like the flicking motion, which way is more comfortable for you, whether it's flicking towards or away from. So for me, I usually find it works better to flick away from myself. So that's how I'll angle my image. So I got all of the skin done, the hair done, did their little sunglasses, and now I'm going to color in all of their little clothes and accessories. So I had kind of chosen the colors I wanted to use. I wanted, you know, bright summer colors, and stuck to a fairly similar kind of color palette and used all these colors just randomly throughout all these images, because again, otherwise I'd be using 10 times more colors and it would just take longer, you know, to find coordinating colors. So it was just kind of easier to go back and forth between these images and just color different images with the same markers. So just really having fun with it. Some of them I would use 3 colors, some I would only use 2. It just kind of depended on which markers I was using. Yeah, not really a full rhyme or reason to it. It just kind of depended with the blending and whatnot. So I got all of my little images kind of colored. Some of it I don't have on camera because I forgot. Forgot to press record, got a little busy. So got them all colored anyway, and then finished off with the sand in the little bucket and my sandcastle. So did the same thing, started with my darkest, worked my way to the lightest once they're all blended. And then I went back and starting with the lightest, working to darkest, I was dotting the markers just to give it that little bit of extra texture with the sand. So I was just kind of started with the lightest, started dotting it, then the medium color, dotted it, and then my darkest, and like added all those little dots. And it just gave it that little extra something. So once I was done all of my coloring, this is where I can line up that whole die set here. It just saves me all that time of, you know, lining up the individual dies. And then those 2 little dies for the drinks, use those, die cut everything in one pass through my machine. And then as a final bit of embellishment, I pulled out my Uni-Ball white gel pen here and started adding in little polka dots and little highlights and different elements to really make these images pop. This is what just kind of takes it, you know, to the next level. So just went along and started adding all these fun little elements, and again, sped this up quite a bit as I went through this. So just kind of went any of the areas where I kind of consider would be at the lightest, you know, where the sun was hitting, etc. But at the same time, half the time I forget and don't really follow a consistent, you know, rule where the sun would be located and where the highlights and shadows would be located. I just want them to look cute. So I added all my highlights, and then when I got to the end, I had the sand here, and I decided to just dot the white gel pen all around the little sand in the bucket as well as on the sandcastle, and that just really finished off that little kind of speckly sand sort of a look. So got all my little main images here finished. And then for my card bases, I'm using Bristol smooth cardstock. So I cut a sheet of this in half. So each piece is 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2. So they're both top folding A2 size cards. And I decided that with all these images I colored, I could probably get 2 cards out of here. So scored my card bases, and then I got out the new stitched diamond dies from Pretty Pink Posh. But instead of using them in the diamond shape, I turned them sideways to create my little scene here. So I lined it up onto my card front, and I was just kind of using my grid mat to like visually get everything straight. And then I'm taping it into place with my MICROPORE tape, and then opening the card before running it through my machine. So I'm only die cutting the front of the card. And then I flipped this over, taped the die cut middle back into place with the MICROPORE tape. I could have done all the sponging before die cutting, but I wanted the die cut done first so I could see where I'm going to place all my ink. So I've got my die cut piece, you know, held in place, and then I used some masking tape or some post-it tape and masked off the bottom portion, and then I'm going to use my Distress Oxide inks to sponge onto my background. So I started off with Vintage Photo Distress ink because that's like the sand. To me, that's the color of sand. So I started with that, and I'm just sponging it along the tape here and pulling it down to create my little scene. And then I'm going to mask off the top area and then mask off again the lower area. This is going to create my water, and for that I'm using Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink. You could totally use Distress ink for this or other dye inks, but I'm obsessed with the Distress Oxides. They blend like butter, and they're just fun. They're so fun. So did all that, masked off the darker blue so that I could sponge on Broken China, which is my absolute favorite color. So blended that on to create my whole little scene here, and I had accidentally didn't mask it very well and had a bit of a gap, but I kind of fixed that, and then I didn't worry about it too much because I wanted to spray all of this with water. So I used my Distress sprayer to create, you know, the splatter effect, and it doesn't have to sit too long, and that's why I love these inks. It's so much fun. Pull it up with a paper towel, and then I've got this awesome splattered background. So I did this twice, so both cards are basically the exact same. So had everything sponged and splattered and all that stuff, removed my masking paper, dried it quickly with my heat tool. And then for the sentiments, though both sentiments are from the Summer Friends set. So I'm inking those up with the same intense black ink from Hero Arts, and then stamping the first sentiment onto the card front. So just lining that up on my grid mat so that I can line everything up and make sure I'm stamping it straight. And then for the inside of the cards, I want to adhere that piece that I die cut onto the inside of the card. So I'm going to fold the card closed, and then that way I can line up that die cut piece onto the inside of the card. I added my Nuvo adhesive to that and then press that into place. And then that way I can ink up the second sentiment with the intense black ink and then stamp that onto the inside of the card. So just kind of repeating the process between each card. So once I have all of this adhered, I can get to creating my scenes. So adhere the second piece, open that up, stamp the sentiment again, and then I can go on and start adhering all my little elements that I'd colored and die cut. And while the camera was off, I also ended up deciding to color and die cut the sun, which is from the new Fly a Kite stamp set. I thought that would just really, you know, finish off my little scene. So I stamped that with the same ink, colored it with the same yellow Copics, added a little bit of highlight, and then die cut it. And then I arranged all these little characters kind of onto my card front, and then I'm just adhering these around this window. So making sure to only apply adhesive to the areas that aren't hanging over the edge, because you don't want to end up like gluing your card shut. Now for me, I honestly don't mind that when you open the card, you can see the backs of these little die cuts and, you know, the colors seep through the cardstock, etc. That doesn't bother me at all. But for those that do, what you could totally do is just die cut some more white cardstock. Like, don't bother stamping it. Just run the coordinating die set through your machine. And then you can just adhere those to the backs of these on the inside of the card. And that would, you know, completely cover it up. You wouldn't have to worry about it. But it just, honestly, just doesn't bug me. So I didn't bother. So I just adhered my little characters, like I said, using adhesive along the edges that were actually adhered to the card front. And making sure there's no glue oozing out. So I'm not gluing anything shut here. And I was able to create both of my little scenes with these fun little characters. And then once I have all of that done, I couldn't resist adding some sequins. So Pretty Pink Posh has released a few different little sequin mixes with this release. And this is the Sunny Days mix, which was, again, perfectly fitting for this. So I kind of sprinkled them rather liberally on the outside and on this inside section of the card, since this is kind of exposed to the outside, so it just works. Just kind of sprinkle those around, and then I'm just going to adhere them into place with dabs of the Nuvo adhesive and my crystal KATANA. Just pick those up and press them into place. And that finished off both my cards. So I will have a link below the video to my blog post, which you definitely should check out, because there is a time-sensitive giveaway going on with this blog hop. So the info for that will be in my blog post that's linked directly below the video. There will also be links to all the supplies used, etc., links to all the other fabulous participants. So check that out below if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.